I was sent a video this week, and the person wanted to know if we could use Final Cut Pro to recreate it. And I'm going to show you how to create some of these moves. The video was essentially a motion graphic. It wasn't a video edited. It was a bunch of different motion graphic pieces combined into a little 10-second loop. Nothing too complex as far as the visuals go, but it is motion graphics. And Apple makes a program called Motion, and Adobe makes one called Adobe After Effects, and there's many other applications out there that are specifically designed to create motion graphics. And Final Cut Pro is an NLE, or a nonlinear editing system, designed to edit videos together. It's not really designed to be a motion graphics application. However, many more simple moves and animations that you could use a motion graphics app for, Final Cut is actually capable of doing that. So I'm going to show you how to do some of those moves here using Final Cut. And I'm going to start with an empty library. And as you know, Final Cut brings in libraries. It'll create one for you, but it's called Untitled. So please click on anything that's called Untitled and give it some kind of name so that you'll be able to keep track of this stuff as you go. Same thing with the event. It brings in the date today. I'm going to rename that as well, just to get everything with some name so I know what it is as opposed to just the default that comes in there. I am going to bring in some media, which I have on the desktop here. To create this, I have two images of flowers that are different colors. And as you'll see in the background here, it is transparent. So these are PNGs with an alpha channel that is transparent. And then just two background images. I'm going to drag these right into my event to import those in. And now we have everything in there. If your interface for Final Cut looks like this or something else, use Command 0 on the keyboard to reset it back to the default interface. This will show our inspector over on the right side and our project at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. And for this one, again, give it a name. The clip that was sent to me was a Square social media post. So your video format, you can actually select Square as an option. It might be set on 1080 or 720, something else, but use Square as your option here, and then you can select the resolution. The post was actually on Instagram, which supports up to 1080, so we can choose that larger resolution. And then you have a frame rate. This is how quickly the video is actually going to play back in terms of how many pictures per second there are. If you don't know a lot about frame rate, you can keep this at 24 or change it to something else. For Instagram, things are very compressed, so you're probably not going to notice a big difference in what you choose here. So you can always choose something more and then cut it down, but everything we're dealing with here is images, so 24 should be fine if you want the higher frame rate, and then you can let Instagram cut it down, choose something like 60 on there. If you're over in Europe dealing with the PAL format and those frame rates, you'll want to choose either like a 25 or a 50 frame rate there. But for now, I'm just going to choose my standard video frame rate, which is drop frame at 2997. I'm going to click on OK. If you're worried about all this stuff, you can use the automatic settings and it'll set it for you. But I went into these custom settings because I wanted that square format. So if you don't see those, just hit this button in the bottom and it'll prompt that for you. And then click OK. And now we have our new project. You'll see up here in the viewer, it is a square view instead of your normal widescreen view. So the first thing I'm going to do is get our backgrounds going. So this is going to be my primary background. So I'm going to drag that onto my timeline. I'll use Shift-Z just to zoom to fit this in there. And this whole project, when it dropped it in, it's about 4 seconds long. I want the whole thing to probably be about 10 seconds. So I'll use Command minus a couple times to zoom out, and then I can drag this edge over till it's about 10 seconds in that little pop-up that you see there. And there we go, we have our 10 seconds. Now, what you'll see here is with the image selected, we have these black bars on the top and the bottom because it actually shrunk this image down to fit the whole image visually, so you could see the whole image and none of it's cut off. But because we're dealing with Square, I'm going to go up to the video inspector here and scroll down. There's this spatial conform option, and right now it's fitting the entire image. That's what fit means. In reality, I just want it to fill that entire background there, so I'll choose fill, and you can see it scales that up so that it fills in the background there. So I have this image, this looks pretty good, and then the other one I want to use is this green leaf background. So I'll drag that down. I can extend that over as well to be the 10 seconds. And I want to do the same thing with the spatial conform. So I select that image and choose fill to get those. Now what's going to happen in this this video is we're going to be kind of sliding back and forth. We're going to have a left and a right side, and we want to choose one or the other. So I'm going to start by animating that part, which is our crop here. So I can choose which side of the crop I want to start from. So essentially this animation that you see here, I'm going to want it to go back and forth over that 10-second loop just to see one side, which we'll say is that lighter side right now, and then the right side there. So for this, I'm going to start at 0, and we're going to animate this green leaf part right now to get that crop. So the playhead is at the beginning, and we'll have it start so that you fully see the green there. So I'm going to add a keyframe, which is this little diamond button, and then I'm going to move to about halfway through, which is 5 seconds. So right there. And I'm going to move this crop over. You can see the slider, I can't get all the way over, so you can actually go to the number here and continue dragging a little bit further. So I'll go to, what's that, 1780, where it's just off the screen. Because I added that first keyframe, another one was already added. That's why that gold diamond's there. So I don't have to do anything with clicking the add keyframe button. And then I'll go all the way back to the end here, double click this number, click 0, and press return to add a third keyframe at the end here. If you want to visually see what this looks like on the timeline, just do a right click or a control click to bring up this little pop-up menu. And you can use also the shortcut Control V to show the video animation. And when we see our video animations, one of the things there is this trim bar, and you can see those 3 keyframes visually on the timeline there. So if you wanted to, you can actually use these to move the keyframes around to refine your animation and the timing on there. I'll use the X to close that out. I don't need to actually make any change. And then if I play back this video, we can see right now it kind of slides over, shows one side, then goes back the other way, and this will be our animation there. Right now, when we get to the end of the project, it just pauses. I can use Command L to turn on loop playback, and that way when it gets to the end, it'll just keep looping, which is essentially what we want this video to do. When we post it to social media, it's going to automatically loop that video over and over again, so you can use this as a way to, that loop playback, you can use it as a way to start previewing what you have there. All right, so those are our backgrounds, and what we're going to have is on the left side, we're going to have the green flower showing up, and on the right side, we're going to have the pink flower. So I can just click and drag those flowers down. Same thing, I'll extend those out to be about that 10 seconds, and then we can do the same thing with this pink flower. Drag that out. And right now, they're both right in the center there. One's covering up the other. They're a little bit small, so I'm going to select the pink one. We'll go into the video inspector here as well, and we can scale this up. I want it to be maybe twice as large, so I'll do it 200%. Yeah, that's probably gonna be okay there. Same thing with the green flower. Select that and do 200% to scale that up. Now, in the timeline here, the pink flower is physically on top of the green flower, so just like it would be in the real world, it's covering up what's below it. With that pink flower selected, I can hit the V key to disable that, V like Victor. So that disables that channel. I can see the green flower, and then if I hit V again, I can see the pink flower. Now, what I want to have happen is when it's on the green background, I want to see the pink flower. And when we slide over to the left side there with the bamboo as the background, I want to see that green background. So we want the crop to also be applied to these two images to go side by side. So I could use a crop on the pink and use a crop on the green and animate that. You saw how I did that with this green background. However, what I'm going to do instead is group these clips, because that'll actually allow me to do some other things, which I'm going to show you in a second. So with the green flower selected, the green background selected, I'm going to remove the keyframes that I added here. And I'm going to do that by clicking on the little drop-down menu and then selecting Reset Parameter. So that just resets everything back to 0. If I hit Control V to show the video animation, you see there's no keyframes now on the trim. So you can also start it this way, add the 2 backgrounds and your 2 images. Now, I want to group these clips. So I'm going to select the green background and the pink flower, because that's going to be on one side. I'm going to right click or control click and create a new compound clip. You can also use the shortcut Option G. And so I'm going to call this the pink flower compound clip here, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the green the green flower in the background there. So another new compound clip, and I'll call this the green flower. Okay, and so what a compound clip does is essentially groups those two things together that we had selected. So you can see the pink flower and the little thumbnails that are on here, pink with the green background, and then our green with the kind of brown background that's on there. So now what I can do is actually select my pink flower here and apply that trim, which I did in the crop part of the inspector. So I'm going to add a keyframe to the left side. I'm going to go to about 5 seconds in the middle, right? And then increase my crop on the left. And this time, because it's the compound clip, I can actually get up to the full 1080 without needing to extend that, which is nice. And then at the end of the animation here, we're going to go back to the fully green. So now what you'll see, because I cropped the compound clip, not only did it crop the background, but it also cropped the flower. So now we have our changing left and right, back and forth, right? All right, so the next phase of this is, in addition to having the flower and the background image, there was also some text that was animated. And it was animated inside of a box. So I'm going to go into the titles and generators sidebar in the upper left here. I'm going to go down into my generators, and let's start out with actually I think I started out with just a solid image for this one. It was just a solid color. So I can go into my solids, and then I have those colors here. And the only kind of downfall with these colors is if I bring them in, it is just a straight up color. I can go into the generators tab here, and there's my color, and I can select a background color. I can use my favorites if I want to, and have all the different colors. However, this box was actually inside of kind of a rounded rectangle shape. So I'm going to use a different generator for that. And I have a shapes generator here inside of the elements category, the shapes one. So I can actually generate a shape here for the text to go into just by dragging that down. If you just need a color, use that other solid, but in this case, I want a little bit of a shape. So you'll notice the generator parameters for this shapes generator, it's a lot more options. So the shape part, let's start out with that. I could choose if I wanted to a square. There's all kinds of different things in here, but I actually want a rectangle. So I'm going to choose the rectangle option. And there's this roundness option, which lets you kind of round the corners. So I want a little bit of a rounded corner. Now, unfortunately, there's not a lot of options here. So you can right-click on these generators and open a copy of these inside of Motion. If you have access to that Motion graphics app from Apple called Motion, you can open that up to get way more customization options. In my case, I just want this to be a little bit taller. So I can go into the video inspector here, movie inspector, and kind of distort this. I can raise up the top and the bottom by going into my scale here. Now, most of the time we do scale all to proportionately keep the shape, whatever it is, the same size. But in my case, I actually want it just to scale on the top and the bottom, which is your Y scale. So I can scale that up a little bit to create more of a shape there that's going to fill and fit the text that I want to put in there. Now, the downfall to this is it is distorting the edges here, and that's why Motion and a dedicated motion graphics app can be better because it can actually, you actually have all the controls for that, for the shape and creating your own shapes in there. And there's other ways to create those, but so there's our shape, and I want some text to go inside that shape. So I'll go up to my titles here. Let's do some basic 3D text here. I'll put that down. And same thing with all the other ones. I'm just extending all these to be the duration of the project. And with the title selected, the text is currently a little big. So inside of our text inspector there, we can scale that down so it fits on the box there. We'll kind of center that in. Same thing as before. If I want to, I can group those into a compound clip to have those all move together. Before I do that, let me change up our material on here. This is kind of, because it's a 3D title, you can put these different materials on there to texture it a certain way. So maybe we'll put this moss texture on there, darken it in so it pops out. All right, so now we have that. The basic 3D has this little fly-in animation for the title. I don't want that, so I'm gonna go over here and there's these build in and build out options. That's what creates that fly-in, so I'm just getting rid of that. All right, so there's one of our titles, so I'm gonna select those, use the Option G shortcut to make that compound clip, and this will be our title, we'll say the left side, and I'm gonna copy that because I want a title on the right side as well. So I'm just gonna Option drag that up, and then I can right click on this and do rename clip, and this will be our title right side. Oh, that's right, these are compound clips. So notice when I renamed one of them, it copied the other one as well. Now this is something that can get very confusing while working with compound clips, because kind of the benefit of them is if you change something in one compound clip, it changes it in all of them if you use that compound clip over and over again. So you want to be careful on that, because as we change the title in one spot, it may change it in others. So with our compound clip selected, we're going to go up to the menu bar, and under the clip menu, there's an option to reference a new parent clip. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for one of these that's selected. This place, it's on the top. So notice it renames it title right copy. So now I can actually rename this and change this to title left. If you're not used to compound clips, I wanted to point that out because it can get very confusing as you start grouping all these things together, which is useful for creating these types of motion graphics, but it can get a little bit confusing for newer editors, so new to this compound clip process. So now I have a title on the left and the title on the right. I can use my transform to move these around. So this is going to be on the left side, so I'll move that over to kind of a negative space and move this one over to the right side. Now, same thing with the flower and everything else back there. I want the titles to also be cropped. So I can actually move these into our other compound clips that we have. So the title on the right side here is going to be grouped with this pink flower. So with it selected, I'm going to use Command X to crop it or cut it. Open up the title here, go to the beginning, use Command V to paste that in. So now it's inside of the compound clip with the pink flower. I'm going to use the timeline history back button to go back to the main timeline here. And with the title left selected, I'll select that and use Command X to cut it. Open up the green flower, go to the beginning, use Command V to paste that in. All right, so now because it's inside of those compound clips, if I go back to the main timeline, you'll see that the title is now cropped as well as we go back and forth across that. That way you don't have to add all that animation with the crop and everything. You just did one, and using these compound clips, it allows you to keep that all in sync, so you don't have to be worried about lining up all those different animations with crops. So that looks pretty good. The next thing is those title boxes are going to be a little bit animated with the flower as well, kind of moving around. So let's open up the pink flower. We'll start with that one. And notice when I'm inside of this compound clip, it only shows you the contents of that clip. So just be aware of that and make sure you're using your timeline history buttons to go back and forth. If you're inside of a compound clip, the left and the right side will show these kind of slashed off lines, and that means that you're inside of a compound clip. So just keep in mind where you're at as you're navigating between all of these. So my title on the right here, I want that to move along with the flower as well. I want that to move as we're going across here. And if we go back to the main clip, you'll see that at the beginning of the project, we're seeing this pink flower with the background there. So I'm going to open it up. And at the beginning of it, I actually want the flower to be transformed over to the left side. And I want the title as well to be kind of on the screen, something like this, maybe up at the top here. We can even rotate it a little bit so that it's roughly filling it up. We can see most of the pink flower there. And it looks pretty good. I'm not going to worry about changing the rotation at all during this, but I am going to change the possibly this position. Actually, the position will probably stay the same. I'm going to just animate the scale for this title. So I'm going to add a keyframe for the scale, and as it goes to the 5-second mark, right halfway through, let me go back out, I'll show you. Once we're halfway through at 5 seconds, we're seeing fully the left side, and then we're going to animate back out to this side. So I go back into the compound clip. I'm at 5 seconds. I want the scale to shrink down, something like that. We might do the position walls, but that'll be fine there. And then at the end of the project, it's going to scale back up to, I think it was at 100%. Go back. So it goes 51%, 100%, right? And I'll exit out of it, show you what it's doing. So now if we play it, you can see that basic title shrinks down over the course as we go over to the other side. And then when we come back, it regains its size. So I want to do the same thing. I want the flower to be moving as well as we're going back and forth. So with the flower over on the left side, I'm going to add a keyframe to the position. I'm going to go into the 5-second mark. And for this one, we're just going to move it left and right. So I'll move it over to the left side. And actually, let me use Command Z here to step back. So this is at negative 264.6. So I'm actually going to try this. We'll see if this works. Instead of -2, I'm going to change it to positives. So we're going to have this number in there, remove the negative sign, hit return. Yeah, and that moves it over to the right side. So it's exactly on the opposite side because 0 is in the middle. So negative is over on the left, positive is over on the right. And then we'll go to the end of this and double click back on our number and re-add the minus or negative. So it moves back to the left side. I like using the numbers over here for this because in a minute we're going to go over and animate that green flower, and we want them to be exactly the same spot. So that's why typing in that number is nice and important. So now we can see that flower is moving over. If we go back to our full project, we can see how one's shrinking and it's moving across. Not bad. All right, so that's how we animate one of the sides. Now I want to do the green flower. I want those to animate as well. I'm going to show you another feature. Hopefully this works. We're going to open up the pink flower, which we already animated. I'm going to copy first the text. So with that selected, I'm going to use Command C to copy it. I'm going to go back out. I'm going to go into the green flower, select the text, and there's an option. You can use the shortcut, but you can also go up to Edit. But there's an option here to paste attributes. And what paste attributes does is brings up this window and it shows you all the attributes of the first thing you copied and allows you to paste them on the second thing. So I want these to be essentially matching. So I can select these and use paste to paste those right on. And let's see what happens here, right? Notice that title that we just pasted on is now shrinking and growing at the same rate as the other one. And we can see it shrinks down and then it grows up. Now we don't actually see it because we pasted attributes that were positioning it and rotating it over on this side. So let me do Command Z to undo that. Go back in here with the title selected. We'll do our paste attributes again. And notice how I don't want to paste the position or the rotation. I really just want to position the scale. And when I paste that in there, now notice what it does. It just changes it so it is on the left side still. We didn't move the position, and it has the effect of that scale. All right. Now I could do the rotation as well. I could go up to the paste attributes because it's still selected and do just the rotation. I'll show you here. The rotation is on the wrong side, right? It's angled from kind of top down, going left to right. I want it to be the other way around, so I can take my rotation and just remove the negative. So now it's positive 16.4, so it puts it in the kind of the right spot there. And then I guess same thing, we could mess with the rotation or the position as well to stack it up where it is here. I'm just going to go in and select that pink title, and we'll change it. Remember, the Y is your top down, right? So this Y position number is going to be the same. So I'm going to copy that, go back out over to the green flower, and paste that in over here. Might be thinking a lot of steps, a lot of little nuances to it, and it's definitely the case. But as you get familiar with all of these, it becomes easier and easier over time, at least how I see it. Now, what we see here is as the title on the right grows, we really want the title on the left to be shrinking. So the scale right now is inverted, right? They're both growing to the same size, but as one's growing, the other should be shrinking. So in our green flower, we can select that text. And with our, you can use the video animation if you want the Control V to see those keyframes and click on them. Or you can navigate using the inspector here as well. Because really, we go from 100 at the start to 50% or 51%. And then at the end, it ends at 100. And really what we want to do is start at 51%. So I'm going to change that one, click the next keyframe, change it to 100, and then go to the next keyframe at the end and drag this back down to 51%. All right, so then if I close this out, go back to the main project here and play this, we can see the title on the left is shrinking as the title on the right, the title on the right shrinking as the title on the left's growing, and vice versa. All right, now the last thing we kind of want to do here is get this green flower to be animated correctly. So I can go in and on the pink flower, just copy that one, go back to the green flower, and we'll do our edit, paste attributes. And in this case, the position and the scale, we've already done the scale, so that doesn't change the whole time, but it's fine to paste that in this case. It's not going to make any change. And then if we take a look at this, we should see those moving together. And unlike the title, where we did want them to be reversed, in this case, the flowers are moving at the same rate left and right, so that when one gets cropped, we see the other in perfect alignment there. Now, this is moving kind of slow for the example video I was provided, so of course you could speed this animation all up by moving those keyframes together. There's another way though. We can take these two clips, do Option G again to group these together into one full clip, and then we could do a speed change on them. A couple ways to do that with the clip selected. You can go up here, this little drop down menu, and there's all these different speed options, so you can speed it up, make it twice as fast or 4 times as fast, and that'll speed that right up. And then we see our animation happening. So don't feel like you're stuck in the having to reapply all those keyframes, go back. You can use a speed adjustment if you just need to speed it up just a little bit. I'm going to change this to about 200%, just because I think you've seen the animation now, so we'll just to keep this going a little bit quicker. So a couple other things happened though. In the example video that I saw, there was a static title at the top of the page. So of course you can go in here, grab another title, add that to your project, and move this around, reposition it so it's at the top, or maybe you want something at the bottom in this case. And then this title will stay on the screen the entire time. So I'm going to put in my handle here. Final Cut Pro Help. It's a little big. We'll shrink it down and maybe reposition that. And because this title in our timeline here is on top of the other compound clip, it'll stay there the whole time. So you could put in a company logo or anything else on top, and it would stay there the whole time. All these things that we've done here with the titles are in there, and we can go back and edit them. And you're going to do this pretty frequently, I would guess. So double click on your compound clips to open them up. Now we're in that first one. I can see the pink flower and the green flower. I can go into the pink flower. Here's my title. I can double click on that compound clip. And there's the basic 3D title that was for that right clip there. So I might go up here and say pink, and this is the pink flower. Go out of that, go back over to the green flower, go into our title there, and this is our green flower, so I can type that in here. Right, so all this stuff is editable. You're not stuck with however it got made. You can go through and change all these things at any point and make those adjustments. So those are the kind of the biggest things. If we wanted to go through and say this flower here, we wanted to bring a little bit more life to it, have it rotating around, we can go into our pink flower. Here's that clip. And we're going to add keyframes in this case for the rotation. So at the beginning of the project, I'll add a keyframe. And by the end of it, I want it to do let's say a full rotation, which is 360 degrees. I can go ahead and apply that keyframe. And now we have that flower rotating around the whole time. Just remember, if you apply something to one side, you have to do it to the other. Because if we go back here, you can see the green flower is not rotating, so then it looks a little weird. So don't forget this copy and pasting of attributes. Use Command C on the pink flower. Go back over to the green flower, select that. Use Edit Paste Attributes or Shift Command V. And in this case, we don't need to do anything with position or scale. We already did that, so I'm just going to paste the rotation. And now let's go all the way back out to our full project here. We can paste that, and now we see it's rotating back and forth, and the color's changing as you have these two titles growing through your project. So that is what I saw in that video. Kind of two backgrounds, titles changing, the flower stuff going. Certainly all this stuff you can go back and refine and make adjustments to. I think one other thing I did was with this background, I found the background a little bit harsh, so you can go into your filters. Under the color filter, there's a colorize option. So you could go in and colorize this to make it adjusted to a specific color that might help out in really making this pop a certain way. So you can go and do that. So you see kind of like a before, after, really making it that green on this side. And then same thing on the other side. This is completely different color compared to what we've been dealing with on everything else. So I can colorize that and then bring up our lightness here. I think this maybe like a dark purple-ish. Doesn't look too great there, but go darker. So I can see now I with the checkbox here, before and after, kind of makes that green pop a lot more. So I'm gonna go back to our main project and play it out. You can see another change happening between those two sides. All right, so I hope that helps out in kind of clarifying some of the things you can do. All of this was done inside of Final Cut with tools you already have. So you don't have to go out to a motion graphics application. You don't have to buy a plugin or anything additional to make this happen. These are all things that are included inside of Final Cut Pro. Obviously, messing with keyframes can get very complex, so don't be surprised if your animation does something you didn't expect it to do. Don't forget that you can use tools in the timeline to visually see those keyframes. With Control V, use this video animation that'll show you where those keyframes are. With a keyframe selected, you can delete it. Or inside of your inspector, with the parameter selected, whatever that may be, use these buttons. If you see them, that means there's keyframes added to them. You can use that to navigate to the keyframes. The biggest mistake that I see happen on accident is with your playhead positioned somewhere else, an adjustment will be made to one of the parameters, and you'll notice with the video animation you can see it, and another keyframe was added, and then all of a sudden that's going to break the cropping parameter from where you thought it was. Notice how it slows way down, and it can be difficult to see where that issue is, but using these video animation, using the video animation on the timeline and these little keyframe buttons, you can go through and find that. In this case, I know this is the wrong keyframe. You can actually click on that and delete that keyframe out of there. And now the animation will be back to normal. All right, I hope that helps out. Let me know down in the comments any questions that you have. And if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If this was useful to you and you want to see something similar, don't hesitate to send me an email, finalcutprohelp@anawesomeguide.com. You can also head over to the website, anawesomeguide.com, for more content. Thanks, everyone.